Thank you so much for joining us today for this chapter of Time-Hopping Hero, Ethan's First Leaps. We truly appreciate you taking the time to read along with us. Just a reminder that the English subtitles for this video are accurate, and YouTube offers some fantastic tools to enhance your learning. If needed, you can use the auto-translate function to view subtitles in your preferred language. You can also slow down the video playback speed if you'd like to listen more carefully. Thanks again for spending your valuable time with us. Enjoy the story. Time-Hopping Hero, Ethan's First Leaps. Copyright 2025. Chunking to Fluency. Chapter 5. The Echoes of Loss. The hum of the time machine in Mr. Abernathy's workshop, once a solitary secret between an old man and a boy, now resonated with a different kind of promise. It was a promise of shared burdens and joint ventures, a sound that underscored the improbable friendship forged in the crucible of truth. Billy Tipton, the former tormentor, now walked beside Ethan Pruitt, not with a sneer, but with a cautious, almost deferential respect. The change in Billy was undeniable. The aggressive edge had dulled, replaced by a vulnerability he clearly struggled to hide, but no longer lashed out to defend. School days were different. The hallways no longer felt like a gauntlet. Other kids, confused by the shift in the social order, mostly kept their distance, observing the new, quiet alliance between the once bullied and the once bully. Ethan, for his part, navigated this new dynamic with a quiet sense of purpose. He saw the subtle flinches, the guarded glances that still shadowed Billy's eyes. Proof that the wounds of his past were deep, not erased, but now perhaps capable of healing. He understood that true change wasn't an instant transformation, but a slow, arduous climb. Mr. Abernathy, now even frailer since his own trip to the past, spent most of his days in a worn armchair near the shop's front window, a thin blanket over his knees. His gaze was often distant, a profound peace etched onto his features, but a physical weariness had settled into his bones. He was still the silent guardian of the time machine, but its active use now fell squarely to Ethan. One crisp autumn afternoon, weeks after their last journey, Billy found Ethan in the workshop, meticulously polishing brass gears, the scent of oil and old metal hanging in the air. Billy leaned against a workbench, picking at a loose thread on his jeans. "It's different now, isn't it?" Billy said, his voice softer than Ethan had ever heard it outside of his breakdown. "Knowing about him. It still hurts, but it's not just blind rage anymore." Ethan paused his work, looking up. "No, it's not. Understanding can do that." Billy kicked at a loose floorboard. I keep thinking about it. About what you said, how you saw it all." He swallowed hard. "How did he get that way? That angry? Was he always like that, even when he was little?" The unspoken question hung heavy between them. Was he born that monster, or was he made? Ethan knew this was the moment. The opportunity to offer Billy the same profound understanding he'd found for Mr. Abernathy. "No one is born that way, Billy," Ethan said, his voice gentle. "People are shaped, sometimes by the good, sometimes by the bad, sometimes by things they can't control." He gestured vaguely towards the time machine, its polished chrome gleaming in the afternoon light. "There's a way to find out, to really see, to understand the roots of it." Billy's head snapped up, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. "You mean we could go back? To his past?" Ethan nodded. "To see what shaped your father, Walter Tipton. To understand the echoes of what made him that way. To learn what happened, so maybe you don't have to carry the same burden into your own life." He also thought of Martha Tipton, Billy's quiet mother, who had lived for years with her husband's suppressed anguish. Perhaps for her sake, too, some healing could begin. A flicker of raw pain crossed Billy's face, quickly masked by his familiar guardedness, but Ethan saw it. "What if it's worse than I think?" Billy whispered, the tough facade truly gone now. "What if it's the only way to truly break free?" Ethan countered, holding Billy's gaze. "What if understanding allows you to heal what's broken, not just for you, but for him too? Your parents are still in your life now, aren't they?" Billy took a shaky breath, then slowly nodded. "They are." He looked at the time machine, then back at Ethan, a profound decision dawning in his eyes. "Okay," he said, his voice firming. "Let's do it. Let's see what made Walter Tipton." The decision hung in the air, heavy with unspoken possibilities, before settling into a shared resolve. Ethan felt a familiar tremor of anticipation, but this time it was laced with a deeper sense of responsibility. This wasn't just about discovery. It was about healing, about using the extraordinary gift to mend a life in the present. Billy, though outwardly calm, gripped the edge of the workbench, his knuckles white. The journey to his father's pain would undoubtedly unlock his own. Over the next few days, Ethan and Billy meticulously planned their trip. Mr. Abernathy, though too frail to join them, offered what advice he could, his voice thin, but his mind still sharp. "Be observers, boys," he cautioned, his eyes fixed on some distant memory. "The past is fragile. See, learn, but do not touch. Not physically, not in spirit. Just witness." His gaze then softened, directed at Billy. "Understanding, young Tipton, is a different kind of power. Use it well." They settled on a date, the spring of 19XX, specifically when Walter Tipton, Billy's father, would have been in his early 20s, attending college, just before his anticipated graduation. This would put them years before Billy's birth, allowing them to witness Walter's life before the layers of bitterness had fully formed. Ethan mapped out the coordinates, focusing on the university area and a prominent local railway company building. On a quiet Friday evening, with Thomas Pruitt, Ethan's father, working late at school, the two boys slipped into the workshop. The air was cool, charged with the scent of ozone from the time machine. Billy's breath hitched as he stepped inside the polished chrome shell, the door hissing shut behind him. The hum began, low and resonant, building into the familiar, disorienting roar. Streaks of light dissolved into the grainy filter of the past, then solidified into a remarkably clear, sun-drenched afternoon. They materialized in a secluded alleyway behind a row of red brick university buildings, a blend of classic architecture and bustling student life. The air was warmer, carrying the scent of blooming lilacs and freshly cut grass. Distant shouts from a baseball game echoed, mixed with the murmur of young voices. This Topeka felt vibrant, full of youthful promise. "Wow," Billy whispered, looking around. His eyes, usually wary, now held a childlike wonder. "It's so old." Ethan consulted his notes. "We're near Topeka State University. Walter would have been a senior here. We're looking for signs of a bright, ambitious young man, maybe around the railway department." They moved cautiously through the university grounds, blending into the background as best they could. Ethan spotted Walter Tipton quickly. He was unmistakable, even in his youth, tall and broad-shouldered, with a confident stride and a head of thick, dark hair. He was in a lively discussion with a group of friends outside an engineering hall, a rolled-up blueprint clutched in his hand. He laughed easily, a booming sound that surprised Billy, who had only ever known his father's harsh, strained voice. "He's laughing," Billy murmured, a strange mix of disbelief and a nascent ache in his own chest. As they observed, they learned that Walter was indeed highly regarded within the university's engineering program, specifically with a focus on railway logistics and design. He spoke passionately about modernizing train routes, improving efficiency, and had already secured a coveted position at the Topeka Central Railway Company upon graduation, with clear aspirations to rise through the ranks. His ambition wasn't just for personal gain. He genuinely believed in the railway's potential to connect communities and drive progress. He saw himself as a key player in Topeka's future, a master of its intricate steel arteries. It was during one of Walter's passionate discussions that a young woman approached the group. She was radiant, with a cascade of rich brown hair and eyes that sparkled with warmth and intelligence. Her smile seemed to light up the very air around her. Walter's booming laugh softened, his posture relaxing as she joined them, a palpable adoration in his gaze. "That must be Clara Bell," Ethan whispered to Billy. Billy nodded, mesmerized. Clara Bell moved with an effortless grace, and her voice, though gentle, carried a clear conviction. She spoke passionately about her own pursuits, not in engineering, but in social work. She was heavily involved in organizing volunteers for a new initiative, the Children's Compassion League. Ethan and Billy listened closely as Clara Bell explained her vision. The League, which had gained remarkable traction on campus, was designed to create safe spaces and offer mentorship to children from vulnerable home environments. It had already grown to include 2 dedicated full-time coordinators, funded through local grants and alumni donations, and a core group of 7 active student volunteers who regularly facilitated after-school programs and provided much-needed support. Clara Bell spoke with an infectious optimism about her plans to expand the League's reach into surrounding counties after graduation, envisioning a network of compassionate care that would provide thousands of children with a chance at a brighter future. Walter listened to her with obvious pride, occasionally interjecting with supportive remarks, his eyes shining with shared purpose and deep affection. This was the Walter Tipton who held boundless hope, fierce ambition, and an open heart, softened by the love of a truly remarkable woman. This was the man who had yet to be broken. Billy watched, a knot forming in his stomach, sensing the profound innocence of this moment, knowing the crushing blow that was yet to come. This was the beautiful, tragic canvas upon which the brutal strokes of his father's future bitterness would be painted. Days bled into weeks for Ethan and Billy, spent observing the vibrant campus life of Walter Tipton's youth. They watched him excel, leading study groups, charming professors, his future seemingly boundless. They saw Clara Bell, a beacon of light, radiating warmth and dedication as she tirelessly worked on the Children's Compassion League, her laughter mingling with Walter's. They were a golden couple, brimming with shared dreams. Walter, rising through the ranks of the Topeka Central Railway, and Clara Bell, expanding her league across Kansas, building havens for vulnerable children. Their love was palpable, a gentle current flowing between them, punctuated by knowing glances and soft touches. They even observed a quiet moment in the university garden where Walter, on bended knee amidst blooming roses, presented Clara Bell with a simple, elegant engagement ring. She accepted, tears of joy streaming down her face, envisioning a lifetime of shared purpose. The closer they drew to graduation, the more a sense of impending doom settled over Ethan. He knew the happiness they were witnessing was fragile, destined to shatter. Billy, too, seemed to sense it, growing quieter, his youthful wonder replaced by a tense anticipation. He rarely spoke now, simply absorbing every interaction, every shared smile between his father and Clara Belle. Knowing what he was seeing was the very foundation of his father's future heartbreak. The day it happened began like any other beautiful spring morning. Graduation preparations were in full swing, the campus buzzing with excited chatter. Clara Belle, true to her nature, was working on a final initiative for the Children's Compassion League before she officially took the reins after their commencement ceremony. She was organizing a large donation drive, loading boxes of books and supplies onto a rented truck destined for a new outreach center on the outskirts of Topeka. Walter was supposed to meet her there later, after a final review session for his railway thesis. Ethan and Billy, having followed Clara Belle, watched from across a busy intersection as she guided a group of student volunteers. She was laughing, directing the movement of boxes with cheerful efficiency. Then it happened. A delivery truck, traveling too fast, ignored a red light. The screech of tires was deafening, followed by a sickening crunch of metal. Clara Belle, ever selfless, had seen a small child dart into the street, chasing a runaway ball. Without a thought for her own safety, she had instinctively pushed the child out of the truck's path. The child was safe. Clara Belle was not. The scene erupted into chaos. Ethan felt a cold dread clamp around his heart. Billy, beside him, let out a choked gasp, his hand flying to his mouth. They watched in horror as Clara Belle lay motionless on the asphalt, the vibrant spring morning suddenly turning muted and desolate. Sirens wailed in the distance, drawing closer. They followed the ambulance to the hospital, a somber procession of unspoken fear. Hours passed in the sterile waiting room, an eternity of hushed whispers and grim-faced doctors. Finally, a weary physician emerged, shaking his head. Clara Belle was gone. Walter Tipton arrived moments later, breathless and unaware, his face alight with anticipation for his post-thesis meeting with Clara. He strode into the waiting room, calling her name. The silence that met him was deafening. He saw the weeping faces of Clara's friends, the solemn expressions of the doctors. Ethan watched, his own chest aching, as the news slowly dawned on Walter. His face, once so full of life and laughter, contorted into an unrecognizable mask of shock. Then disbelief, then an agonizing, raw grief that tore through the very air. He fell to his knees, a guttural cry ripped from his throat, a sound of absolute, soul-shattering loss that echoed through the quiet hospital corridors. For the next few weeks, Ethan and Billy observed the unraveling of Walter Tipton. The man they had seen, so full of promise and love, simply ceased to exist. He missed graduation. He retreated into himself, rejecting comfort, lashing out at those who tried to help. His grief curdled into a corrosive bitterness, a silent, festering wound that devoured his spirit. His coveted position at the Topeka Central Railway Company, once the pinnacle of his aspirations, became a source of resentment. He couldn't face the future he had envisioned with Clara Belle. He began drinking heavily, first to numb the pain, then out of habit, then out of a deep-seated anger at the world for taking everything from him. His work suffered, his ambition evaporated, replaced by sullen resentment and a growing aggressive streak. He became erratic, missing meetings, clashing with superiors, often reeking of stale alcohol. Just months after his world collapsed, his employment was terminated. Not with a bang, but with a quiet, regretful severance, ending his once promising career in disgrace. Ethan and Billy watched as the vibrant, optimistic young man they had observed slowly transformed into the hardened, angry figure Billy recognized as his father. The passion for the railway, the love for Clarabelle, the belief in a bright future, all were buried under layers of pain and unexpressed anguish. Walter built a wall around his heart, a fortress of silence and bitterness, protecting the raw wound beneath. He never spoke of Clarabelle again, not to his friends, not to his new wife, Martha, whom he would meet years later, a quiet woman drawn to his lost potential, not to anyone. The secret of his devastating loss and the rage that stemmed from it was locked away, becoming the invisible poison that would permeate his future family, his future home, and most tragically, his own son. Billy, witnessing this transformation firsthand, felt the raw, unadulterated weight of his father's pain. He saw not a monster, but a man broken by an unbearable loss. A man who had never learned how to grieve, only how to harden. The realization was a devastating punch to his gut, but also, paradoxically, a profound release. The anger he had harbored for his father, though still present, now mingled with a deep, aching sadness and a nascent understanding. He saw the him that Ethan had told him he didn't have to be, not the abuser, but the broken, silent man consumed by the echoes of loss. The end of Chapter 5. Chunk phrases of interest for Chapter 5.
Number 1. The suppressed anguish. The suppressed anguish. This chunk phrase refers to emotional pain that is hidden or kept secret. Example: he carried the suppressed anguish of his past wherever he went. He carried the suppressed anguish of his past wherever he went. Number 2. To map out the coordinates. To map out the coordinates. This chunk phrase refers to planning precise locations or points. Example: Ethan began to map out the coordinates for their next jump. Ethan began to map out the coordinates for their next jump. Number 3. A secluded alleyway. A secluded alleyway. This chunk phrase refers to a narrow passage or street, typically between buildings, that is isolated or hidden. Example: they materialized in a secluded alleyway behind the old theater. They materialized in a secluded alleyway behind the old theater. Number 4. Bustling student life. Bustling student life. This chunk phrase refers to the energetic and busy activity typical of a university or college campus with many students. Example: the campus was alive with bustling student life. The campus was alive with bustling student life. Number 5. The scent of blooming lilacs. The scent of blooming lilacs. This chunk phrase refers to the distinctive, sweet smell of lilac flowers that are opening. Example: the spring air carried the scent of blooming lilacs. The spring air carried the scent of blooming lilacs. Number 6. The railway department. The railway department. This chunk phrase refers to a division or section within a university or company specifically focused on railway engineering, logistics, or operations. Example: Walter was a star student in the railway department. Walter was a star student in the railway department. Number 7. A booming sound. A booming sound. This chunk phrase refers to a loud, powerful sound. Example: his laughter was a booming sound that filled the room. His laughter was a booming sound that filled the room. Number 8. The railway logistics. The railway logistics. This chunk phrase refers to the detailed organization and implementation of a complex operation involving railways, including the movement of trains, goods, and people. Example: he studied the complexities of railway logistics. He studied the complexities of railway logistics. Number 9. To rise through the ranks. To rise through the ranks. This chunk phrase refers to the advancement in status, power, or authority within an organization or profession. Example: Walter had clear aspirations to rise through the ranks at the railway company. Walter had clear aspirations to rise through the ranks at the railway company. Number 10. A key player. A key player. This chunk phrase refers to someone who plays a crucial role. Example: he saw himself as a key player in the company's future. He saw himself as a key player in the company's future. Number 11. To approach the group. To approach the group. This chunk phrase refers to someone moving to join or interact with others. Example: a young woman began to approach the group. A young woman began to approach the group. Number 12. To offer mentorship to children. To offer mentorship to children. This chunk phrase refers to the act of guiding or advising young people. Example: the charity aimed to offer mentorship to children from struggling families. The charity aimed to offer mentorship to children from struggling families. Number 13. Vulnerable home environments. Vulnerable home environments. This chunk phrase refers to living situations or family settings where individuals, especially children, are at risk of harm, neglect, or lack of support. Example: the League helped children from vulnerable home environments. The League helped children from vulnerable home environments. Number 14. The surrounding counties. The surrounding counties. This chunk phrase refers to the nearby geographical administrative areas. Example: they plan to expand their services into the surrounding counties. They plan to expand their services into the surrounding counties. Number 15. To be in full swing. To be in full swing. This chunk phrase refers to being at a stage when activity is at its highest or most intense level. Example: graduation preparations were in full swing. Graduation preparations were in full swing. Number 16. A donation drive. A donation drive. This chunk phrase refers to an event or campaign for gathering charitable contributions. Example: Clara Bell was organizing a large donation drive. Clara Bell was organizing a large donation drive. Number 17. To lay motionless. To lay motionless. This chunk phrase refers to a state of being completely still, often implying injury or death. Example: she saw Clara Bell lay motionless on the asphalt. She saw Clara Bell lay motionless on the asphalt. Number 18. to lash out at. To lash out at. This chunk phrase refers to the act of suddenly attacking someone or something, either physically or verbally, often in anger. Example, his grief made him lash out at anyone who tried to help. His grief made him lash out at anyone who tried to help. Number 19. A festering wound. A festering wound. This chunk phrase refers figuratively to an unaddressed emotional or psychological injury that continues to cause problems. Example, his grief curdled into a festering wound. His grief curdled into a festering wound. Number 20. To numb the pain. To numb the pain. This chunk phrase refers to the act of making a physical or emotional sensation less intense or completely absent, often by using substances like alcohol or drugs. Example, he began drinking heavily to numb the pain. He began drinking heavily to numb the pain.
The end of chunk phrases of interest for Chapter 5.
Give it a like, will ya?
We hope that by listening to the story and reviewing the chunk phrases of interest, you've had a chance to increase your English vocabulary in an enjoyable way. If you enjoyed this chapter and want to continue your journey with Ethan and his time-hopping adventures, please subscribe to the Chunking to Fluency channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Feel free to share this video with anyone who might enjoy it or is learning English. And don't forget to give it a like. Finally, if you hit the notification bell icon, you'll be sure to know when the next chapter of time-hopping hero, Ethan's First Leaps, is released. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to sharing more stories with you soon. Be blessed.